Good evening. We are here on Wednesday night, continuing our adult Bible class series on worship that corresponds with the sermons we've been learning about. See, worship is a very complex idea. Lots of rich and meaningful details that often go, well, if we're not careful, unnoticed. Hopefully throughout the series, you've begun to ask yourself the question of, why have I made worship so small? Or what more can I do to worship? And as you explore these things, hopefully you'll find a deeper level of maturation in your faith, as well as a deeper connection to God. Because as we talked about last Sunday, worship is fulfilling to both you and God. Today we're going to continue the question we asked on Sunday. These classes serve kind of like an overflow of our material that we covered on Sunday morning. On Sunday morning, what we discussed was, why worship? We talked about the fulfillment it brings. But I'd like to offer you another reason why we worship. If you have a Bible, turn with me to Psalm 98. Psalm 98. The psalmist says this: "Sing for Yahweh a new song, because he has done extraordinary things. His right hand has wrought deliverance. Yes, it is his sacred arm. Yahweh has caused his deliverance to be acknowledged, and the whole nation, all the nations of the world have revealed his faithfulness. He has been mindful of his commitment and his truthfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the deliverance of our God." And then listen to this: "Shout for Yahweh, all the earth. Break out and resound and make music. Make music for Yahweh with the lyre. With the lyre and the sound of music, with trumpets and the sounds of the horn, shout before King Yahweh. The sea and what fills it should thunder, the world and his people who live in it. Rivers should clap the palms of their hands, and mountains should resound together before Yahweh, because he has come to rule this earth, and he exercises this authority over the world with faithfulness and over people with righteousness." What we have here is a really good example of one of the reasons why we worship. It's in response to. It's in response to. Worship here is being motivated by the faithfulness of God to people. The psalmist here is referencing a whole bunch of things. How God is faithful not only to the people, but to creation. How he's gentle and generous to all things. He even goes on to say that the nations should rejoice in God. The nations should worship because of what God has done for them. But then he even says things like the mountains and the seas and the fish in the seas. They should worship because of what God has done for them. A very real part of worship is not only the fulfillment things that we talked about in our relationship with God on Sunday, but it's in response to what we see God doing around us today. Just 2 chapters later in Psalm 100, "Shout for Yahweh, all the earth. Serve Yahweh with rejoicing. Come before him with a resounding sound. Acknowledge that Yahweh is God. He is the one who made us, and we are his people and the sheep he pastures. Come into his gateways with confession. His courtyard enter with praise. Confess him and bless him, because Yahweh is good." Why? Why do all this? Why worship? Because his commitment is eternal, and his truthfulness is always. Psalm after psalm we could go through as the psalmists write these beautiful hymns of worship, feeling compelled to worship because they've seen what God has done. Tonight I want us to quickly just address that thought, as we can unlock a part of our worship as we acknowledge what God has done. But here's the kicker: it's not always easy to tell. It's not always easy to see. In college, I took one art class, just one. I'm not an artist. I didn't really like it, but I tried it. I was a theater major, so I had a lot of exposure to people in the arts. I thought I should become exposed to it. And we were asked to take a class on antiquity, art and antiquity. And we started with the red vases from ancient Greece. We looked at a couple of very early paintings from the end of the Roman Empire, even into the Middle Ages just a bit, as we got to see some of the more popularized paintings that many of you would see if you went to art museums. But here's the kicker: I never knew what made a painting good. There were sometimes I looked at a painting and went, that doesn't seem good to me. That doesn't look beautiful. I don't really know if I like it. And there were some times where I looked at things and said, oh, I think I like that. And then I was told later I shouldn't like that. And I was really frustrated and confused. That's why I only took one art class, because I never had the discerning eye for what makes art good and what makes it bad, what makes it valuable and what doesn't. To be quite frank, there are times in dentist's office I see a painting hanging on a wall and I think that looks just as good as a Monet. But that's just because I'm uneducated, because I don't have eyes to see what beauty is and what it looks like in our life around us. Sometimes I think we, like bad art critics, fail to worship in response to the beautiful things God does because we don't see the beautiful things God does. We, like me looking at a Monet, are staring in the face of beauty, but completely miss it. I think part of it is because our eyes haven't been trained to look for beauty. Our eyes have been trained to look for bad. Let me give you a couple of examples of this, and then we'll kind of wrap it all up. Like I said, it's not going to be a very long video tonight. When I walk into a room and someone approaches me, my human tendency is to evaluate them and judge them, right? Yours is too, if we're being honest. And now we don't call it judging because we have a negative connotation. We just view them. We kind of size them up, right? We look at what they're wearing, how they talk, how they dress, how they walk, what car they drive or whatever, and we begin to draw all these conclusions about them. But oftentimes, if you're honest, one of the first things you notice is negativity towards the person. You find the things you don't like about them. It's our instinct. We immediately are gravitated and drawn into the things that we're not going to like about people. Why? Because we're drawn to negativity. Our eyes are drawn to the bad. If you watched a news program in the evening before bed and there was an hour-long news program and 53 minutes of it were positive, but there were 7 minutes of something negative, what would resonate in your head? Probably the negative. When you wake up the next morning, in fact, I would encourage you, if you do watch a positive news source, if there is such a thing, try to remember all the positive things in lieu of the negative, and you're going to find it's difficult. Why? Because our eyes are trained to see the negative. Our eyes are trained to see the ugly, the bad. They're not trained to see beauty. This is why Paul writes in Philippians chapter 4, he's trying to get the Christians in Philippi to rethink, reanalyze the way they view the world. He understands what we're now realizing, that we have a tendency to see ugly, not beauty. We have a tendency to see evil, not good. Our eyes are trained to find the bad and not the righteous. And Paul says it like this: for the rest of you, my dear family, Philippians 4 verse 8, these are the things that you should think through. Whatever is true, whatever is holy, whatever is upright, whatever is pure, whatever is attractive, whatever is good reputation, anything virtuous, anything praiseworthy, these are the things you should think through. Paul is saying your eyes, people in Philippi, are trained to see bad. But I'm going to challenge you to see beauty. And likewise, in the same way, God calls us to train our eyes, not to see the ugly, but to see the beauty. We all start like bad art critics, looking at the world around us and not seeing beautiful reasons why to worship God in response to it. But eventually, as our eyes are trained to find beauty, we'll begin to see God everywhere and moments for worship all the time. We'll begin to see that beauty is everywhere. There's a book by an author named Brian Zahnd. He writes a book called Beauty Will Save the World. In it, he says this: we need to constantly ask ourselves, is this beautiful? Is this thought beautiful? Is this attitude beautiful? Is this action beautiful? Does it reflect the beauty of Christ and the cross? Imagine if we spent our life pursuing beauty like that. Looking around us in every moment, trying to find the beautiful thing, and then living in that beauty. Imagine if we looked into every moment and tried to find the masterpiece, not the bad. Finding the positives and not the negatives. And imagine how much different our worship life would be as we realize we're immersed constantly in it. And like the psalmist, we are responding to the call of beauty. We are responding to the things God is doing around us. Now, tonight I want us to leave here asking one question. What kind of art critic am I? Do I have eyes to see the beauty around me? Because God has told us in no uncertain terms that there is beauty around us. And God has told us in no uncertain terms that he is going to continually work good in our favor. And if we're able to see it, our worship will come natural. We will worship in response to all that he has done. We will be compelled to, because there will come a point when the beauty is so overwhelming that we won't be able to look away. I mentioned earlier that I'm not a good art critic. I never could understand art. But one thing I do understand is theater. Love theater. And there was a recent British adaptation of Hamlet that was done on the West End. And I saw a illegal picture of it, video of it, just a snippet of it, someone doing that famous speech, Hamlet's speech, to be or not to be. And literally as soon as the lights came up and I saw the actor on stage, every choice he made, every action, from the littlest movement of his hand to the way he turned his head, to the way he would raise an eyebrow or the way he would articulate a word, every moment of it had me transfixed. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. It was one of the most incredibly well-acted things I've ever seen. In that moment, I was so transfixed by the beauty of the art I was seeing that at the end, no one was there. When the video clip ended, I was alone in a room in my house, and I began to clap. And I felt like such an idiot. I was clapping. Why was I clapping? No one was there. Because I couldn't help it. I just saw this thing that was so incredible, so transforming, so artistically rendered that I couldn't help but celebrate that guy's artistry. And that's supposed to be our reaction in worship. As we have eyes to see, we'll see the beauty around us. We'll see all the things that God is doing. We'll ask those questions. Am I doing what's beautiful? Am I seeing what's beautiful? Am I pursuing what's beautiful? We become transformed in the beauty, and we see the beauty. And all of this beauty around us leads us to doing nothing but worship. We can't help ourselves. Like me sitting in the empty room clapping for the artist, we'll find ourselves celebrating, worshiping God for the beauty that's all around us and the artistry that he has so marvelously woven into our existence. God is beautiful, and all that he does is beautiful. Do you see it? Do you find it? I will exalt you, my God and my King. And I will bless your name every moment, forever. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name lastingly and permanently. For Yahweh, you are great and much to be praised, and of his greatness I'll never get enough. One generation will extol your works to another generation and tell of your mighty acts, but they will not cease. Of the glorious magnificence of your grandeur and your extraordinary deeds, I can't help but speak. And people will talk of your might and these awe-inspiring acts in greatness and in peace. They will pour forth commemoration of your great goods and resound at your faithfulness, because you, God, you, Yahweh, are gracious and compassionate, long-tempered and committed. You are good in all things, and your compassion is seen in all things. They will talk of the splendor of you and your creation, and your reign will last forever. Psalm chapter 145. Look around you. The beauty of the King is all around you. Train your eyes to see beauty. Train your heart to interpret it, and be unlocked to a lifetime of responsive worship. As every moment of every day, you find a beauty that will change the world.